Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So today's deck is a kind of mix between both Electro ramp decks that I posted recently after the update to Sandman. The first one was a kind of all-in, very heavy, very greedy Electro, Thor into Devil Dino, Arnim Zola, Wong, Black Panther, just a really greedy deck that if the cards got displaced or misplaced by an arrow or blocked by a Cosmo, a lot of times it was really unimpactful. And then the second one was a more consistent Electro ramp that ran things like Ebony Maw. It ran all three ramp components in the Psylocke, in the Electro, and in the Wave. And then it ran kind of the normal Electro ramp core at the end of Sandman, Arrow, Odin, Doctor Doom, Chavez for consistency. And today I came across a mix between those two ideals. So a mixture that kind of feels like the best of both decks. And this one was created by a user named Clay Doe in the KM Best Discord. And it uses a Daredevil Professor X lock, which I'm always a big fan of. If you can lock the opponent out of locations early and you get an ideal read on where you can drop your Professor X, a lot of times it makes their following turns or their remaining turns a lot more easy to predict and a lot less efficient. And so if we don't draw that play line, we do still have the normal Electro ramp components in our Electro and our Wave into a Sandman if they're running a kind of flood deck. So if we can get that out early against maybe a Thanos list, then we can do some pretty decent things. We also have the Arrow into Odin, which is sometimes hard to use. It feels kind of clunky. It feels like it might not be enough power overall to win, because you do have to use your turn 5 and turn 6 plays, or your turn 4 and turn 5 play if you Electro ramped. And sometimes you can make the opponent cap out their lanes. A lot of times it just makes their drops inefficient. And so if you have a lead or going into that, then you can make a lot of use of it. We can also do our Doctor Doom into Odin, which will then push a lot of power across the board. We have Magneto to displace some of their cards and some of their power. And we have the Arnim Zola, which I think is kind of where that hybrid consistency comes from between this list and last list, is if we don't draw our Doctor Doom and we need to impact multiple lanes, we need to impact other lanes other than what we've already got power in. Let's say it's a Sanctum Sanctorum, a Death's Domain, something we're having difficulty reaching into. Arnim Zola could be that factor. And if it's not anticipated, a lot of times Arnim Zola can win you some bigger cube games in the process. And so overall, I've had quite a bit of success with this list. It is a little bit up and down. You're going to have to retreat sometimes when you don't quite have the upper hand, but a lot of times you can maneuver it where you're in a really good spot to have a good chance of winning. And then the Devil Dino is just always good value. And so if you want to see more of this deck and any of the other decks that we cover live in a less structured way, make sure to be following us on twitch.tv/TLSG Snap. And with the brief deck explanation out of the way, we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, next up we have the name that's becoming very, very common, and it's UR. And then the title is either something really nice, or the most common one is UR, and then the title of absolute garbage. So we do have Daredevil. We have both of our ramp components. We have our Professor X to early lock a lane. Ooh. Sakaar could be problematic. I'm going to go ahead and play Daredevil into Sakaar just in case we pull our Professor X. If we do, we're hoping that it pulls into like a stone or something really small on their end. If we end up pulling into like Wave, then nobody can play next turn. If we end up pulling into Electro, the Professor X could be really bad here, but it ends up being really good. I'm not sure what Shuri is doing in the Thanos list. I guess it's some kind of experimentation that they're messing around with. But I am glad that we got the lucky Professor X lock. That gives us a really good edge over our opponent here. We're going to go with the Electro ramp here. That will allow us to do Magneto on 4 if we want to. We could also try to angle our Shang-Chi if they play their card that has been double powered by Shuri. They do. They completely cap out the left lane. So are they running a Killmonger, I wonder? I mean, we will absolutely take it. I'm going to play the Magneto over to the left, and then we'll kind of go from there. So they played their double power card. Oh, it's the Galactus. Oh, it feels so bad. Well, all right, so they got the additional draw. Their Shuri has come down. We're no longer locked in the Professor X lane. We are tied for initiative in the Titan lane. So let's see what they come down with here. We go first. We don't want to go first. I'm going to skip. We probably lose, but we lost initiative going to that last turn. So if they have things that are above the 10 power range, then we can take them out. And I think we actually end in a tie here, which I'll take. I'll take a tie over Galactus, Thanos, pay to win / sometimes lose deck any day. Let's go ahead and take it. We will jump over into the next one. All right, so it's a day of duplicates, I suppose. We're going against UR again. And so we know a little bit more about what they're running. They're running a Shuri, Thanos, Galactus deck. And so we know a couple of cards are going to be really, really helpful for us. Either our Arrow to pull their Galactus into a lane they don't want it to be in. We also pull their Shuri, which is kind of nice because Kamar Taj comes up. And so we know that they have the Shuri playline as well. We could do the 12 power Professor X. They get the double draw. They get the double draw from Kamar Taj. Oh no, we get Shuri from the hub, which is big. I thought it was Daily Bugle, but it is not. I'm going to play the Shuri to get the double trigger on it. They do the Psylocke to get the double trigger on it. So we're going to skip here into our next turn. We could either do the 20 power Sandman or the 12 power Professor X, depending on what the opponent plays this turn. So if they drop their Galactus, we can actually try to lock them out of the game with our Professor X. Knowing that that was coming down, we could kind of angle our decisions around a potential Galactus playline. And so I think we're going to do the Professor X. I think we want to try to just end it all here. We want to get this game over with, and if they do what they did last game and they skip here, they do play the Shuri, we play the 12 power lock, and it is all over for you, UR. We will try not to match into you again, but we take the 1-win advantage. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have green. And the first location is Washington, D.C. We don't get much use out of it besides something like our Dr. Doom that can send the Doom bots, and they actually get benefit from the Washington, D.C. lane. Now, the demon that they just generated also gets benefit from it. And then we do cycle into Subterranea, so our draws get a little bit less consistent. We don't have either of our ramp components just yet. And so if we don't draw into either or, a lot of times we may not be able to stand up to whatever the opponent is running. And so the Titania comes down, the Nightcrawler comes down, they're bouncing it our way, interestingly enough. Which, ooh, and then we do get our wave. So I think we wave here. We try to get an early lock in Subterranea with Titania on our side of the board. That way she is locked in place, and she won't bounce back and forth anymore. Now, it does look like they're running a Zoo deck, so depending on what they drop here, if they play into middle and they get Titania onto their side of the board, we may end up going with Sandman instead, which I'm still a little bit torn on. So we do have initiative. We can guarantee that we get the middle lock. That one should be an easy lockdown. I do think we get some good value from Sandman this game, because in their hand, they now have the Quinjet, they have the Hood. Actually, if they do Moon Girl this turn, which would kind of be in line with the double down deck, if they do Moon Girl this turn and then end up skipping on turn 5 to be able to flood the board, then we can actually play Sandman maybe on turn 5 just naturally. And so we are going to lock in the middle location. That's going to make it very difficult for them to win this one. They also are running low on space now. They do use magic, so maybe they end up skipping here. Maybe they use Moon Girl here. But either way, I think we're in a really good spot. If I didn't want to let this play all the way out, I would go ahead and snap in this positioning, because we are in a very good spot. We have the Sandman. We know that they want to flood their cards, so they probably skip on 6 or 7, or maybe they skip this turn into trying to change this with the Scarlet Witch. Either way, we are going to be ready. We're going to drop the Sandman. I think after they realize they're not going to be able to do the flood that they want to do, they will probably back out. So they do skip here. So it could be doing the Demon, the She-Hulk, and a Scarlet Witch to change this limbo location and try to kind of sneak it away from us. But we are winning right now. The 3 lanes, they can only drop 1 card here, even though they skipped. And I guess let's just play the Devil Dino. I'm going to play the Dr. Doom. I don't think it matters where we play. I don't think with them only being able to do 1 per turn, they could do an Infinite this turn. but that's really going to drastically hurt them going into the next turn. They can swing one lane, but how do they swing at that last location? And then with us having arrow, if they don't do their infinite here, then they're susceptible to the arrow play. It just becomes really tricky since we have locked down the middle location with the Professor X. And so they do stay here. I wonder if this is the infinite in the far right lane. No, it's the She-Hulk, which we should be able to outpower the She-Hulk. We do have initiative, so if they do an arrow for some reason, then we outpower them here. We stay outpowering them in mid. I think it's an easy Odin into another Doombot in game. I think the only thing that could have done it for them would be the infinite into the right lane, and then they would have to have a really solid follow-up in Washington, D.C., which they're not going to be able to make happen. So we will take our 1 cube. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Exo Mathias, and I'm kind of excited. We're not playing a bot. It's just there's a lot fewer people playing right now because we've been matching up into a lot of bots. So the second location is Westview. They do end up snapping. That tells me they might be excited about Kamartage, and they just didn't want to let us know that they were excited about it. I expect maybe a Shuri deck. So maybe a Shuri on 4. Ooh, we could, All right, next up we have Elieb. The first location is Mirror Dimension. So they play their Quinjet. They are running Thanos. So Thanos and his stones are going to be pretty prevalent here. We could do Daredevil into Wave, into Odin, into a Daredevil read to figure out what we need to do for turn 5. That's going to really start restricting them from what they can play and how much power they can push out early. And so from that, we might be able to find a way to win. We could also do Wave into the Arnim Zola into the Odin, which would push an Odin here and here to re-trigger the waves, which is also kind of a funny play line. But I don't know that that's the most optimal line. So the middle location is Sewer System. They played their Soul Stone, so our Daredevil is actually 0 power. Let's go with the Wave into seeing what they played this turn. They do only play 1 card. They play their Sunspot. And so they're only going to be able to play 1 card this upcoming turn as well. And so, okay, so the far left lane turns into Stark Tower. We do get our arrow. I think we're going to Odin here to re-trigger Wave. They do Magneto. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, our Odin is actually not going to hit anything here. Unfortunately for us, we do get the Daredevil read, so I think we're probably going to angle towards a Shang-Chi on this turn, or maybe we angle towards a Professor X lock into a Shang-Chi next turn to help swing the left lane. I think could be our potential play line since they magnetoed our Wave away. They were protecting against the Galactus play, and that's not what we're going for here. So they locked, oh man, they full lock their far right lane. So I think we're going to lock in the Professor X lane. This is going to go from 3 down to 2 down to 1. And so we should get a lead. If they have the Blue Marvel, then this actually becomes a tie. So that's a little bit more rough. I think that's our best play line because once they rotate their cards, we're not going to be able to have a good arrow pool. And so I think this is our line. We're going to Professor X lock mid. We hope that they don't get their Blue Marvel. If they do, then that's game for them. There's not going to be much we can do about it. So the project, wow, we get a lot of energy going into the last turn of the game. So they pull their Shang-Chi, which is pretty unfortunate that they're not going to be able to block anything. Their Sunspot absorbs the energy, so that's fine. If we did Shang-Chi, that leaves them at 5 in this lane. We can actually swing it with Magneto, potentially. If they use an arrow, then we're going to have the Magneto that comes over. We're going to have the Shang-Chi that comes over. I think the Project Pegasus lane really stabbed them in the back here. They do use the arrow play, but that's fine. We take out their Magneto, their She-Hulk. We have the we have our own Magneto that comes down. We win left, we win mid. They win right very heavily. That is an unfortunate reality shift. But the Daredevil was what allowed us to find a lane that we were freely able to lock down so that we could position ourselves to win on that last turn of the game. That one feels good. We will take our 4 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Musai. The first location is the Avengers compound lane. So they start with a sunspot. We're probably not going to compete for that location. I would much rather be able to maybe push one of our lockdown cards, so like a ramp component into Professor X, a ramp component into a Sandman, depending on what they're running, a little bit early. Oh, so they are running a Thanos list. So the Lemuria location is actually kind of unfortunate for them. Let's go with our wave into the Daredevil lane. From there, we can use our sand. Oh my gosh, Project Pegasus again from the Reality Stone. We're gonna have a lot of energy here. I think we utilize that energy. How much is it gonna be? Yeah, we can play two. We can both play two cards here. They can play two cards. We can play two cards. Let's do the Doctor Doom, and let's do our Sandman to the left. And this way, they're both protected from Shang-Chi plays. If they get greedy, then we do have our Shang-Chi to be able to utilize. And so let's see what they end up going with. The Blue Marvel is big. That helps buff up the rest of the board. They go with an arrow. So they pull both of our cards into Lemuria. That is going to cap out that location, unfortunately for us. But luckily for us, we are ahead right now. We do get our Odin, which is not what we wanted to see here. Their Sunspot is above the Shang-Chi range. So if we can tell that they're investing here, maybe we go with the Devil Dino to the left and a Shang-Chi to the right. But either way, they're going to have to play their big cards. They're not going to be able to free rotate, and that takes away a lot of their upside. So they use their Power Stone, interestingly enough. They use their Power Stone into Lemuria. That's not enough to give them the lead here right now. That's only 4 power. And so it's going to lead to a tie. Crazy. So crazy. Let's go with they've already played their arrow. I'm going to go with the Shang-Chi into the Washington, D.C. lane. I was back and forth of whether we wanted to hold it for the last turn or if we wanted to opt to use our Devil Dino this turn. But I don't know. It's very back and forth. I think once we use our Devil Dino, that's actually not that big. It's 9 power. So if they have they used all of their stones? I don't think they have. So the Power Stone is really odd to me, but that's our biggest play. Otherwise, it's Odin, and I don't think that's a great play, especially with us having initiative. That doesn't give us what we need here. Had we been able to use our Odin onto the Doctor Doom, would have been beautiful. But I think this is an okay chance. I don't think it's great, but I don't think it's terrible either. They do end up retreating, so I guess they didn't have a way to impact multiple lanes, or a big enough one that they were confident that they would win the tiebreaker. So we will take that one. Let's go ahead and jump over into one more. All right, next up we have Jared, the Herald of Galactus himself. So we start with Electro. We have our ramp component. We have Arnim Zola if we end up needing to use it. The raft is going to be a tricky one. So we're not going to be able to compete for the raft. If we can get Sandman down, then they're going to have to choose between their free resource and the resources they actually put in their deck. And so then I think it becomes a toss-up of how they want to maneuver that turn. And so the middle location is the Crimson Cosmos. So we do have our Sandman. We don't know exactly what they're running. They ran a Cloak. Interesting. So that could be a Galactus. It could be just a movement deck. But it very well could be a Galactus deck, which Galactus is a little bit scary for us. I think we do Electro here. Do we ever move our negative ninja over? Nah, we're gonna stick to this. They do a Polaris, so okay, we do move our negative ninja over. They just force it for us. So it does look like more of a movement deck instead of a Galactus. The Polaris I don't think ever slots into a Galactus, at least very comfortably. We can do Sandman. We do have our Doctor Doom and Odin. So we do Sandman. We're going to do Doctor Doom on 5, Odin on 6. That will fill up this lane. That will give us a pretty good push in this lane. And I think that's all we really need to do. I think it's a very straightforward game this time around. They do have some counter movement cards and probably Magneto, Iron Fist, so they push their Vulture. So they get some value there. But I just don't think it's going to be enough once the Sandman comes down. So let's do our Doctor Doom. Very straightforward. Into the 8 power of Odin to spread another 10 into the other 2 lanes. And that should be how we win. I think they probably retreat after the Sandman. If not now, then after the Doctor Doom comes down. Now they could use an arrow here. If they use an arrow here, that's fine. And if they don't use an arrow here, then we should grab initiative going into that last turn so that the arrow play won't impact us that way either. So they do get the free, they get the free resource from the raft, but they play a storm, and so it doesn't really change or impact all that much. We do grab initiative going into the turn. Actually, I was thinking Odin all the way up until we realized that they had that much power here. I think we Magneto, right? If we Magneto to the left, that brings us up. If we just do Odin in Shadowland, that's not going to get us enough to win. That is going to only get us enough to lose. Then we would have to rely on winning mid and right. With Magneto swinging the left lane and them only being able to play one card, that should be what we need to find our win. And so we do get the 2-cube retreat. We are going to go ahead and take the win where we can. With that one, we're going to go ahead and end the video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.